but I probably should be in place before all that. Thank you. Good morning. Welcome to First Unitarian Church of Wilmington, Delaware. As today's service is a hybrid service, we welcome you both in person in the sanctuary and online. We welcome you regardless of the color of your skin, whom you love, where you are from, and where you may find yourself on your spiritual journey. My name is Tracy Spinkadomes, and I'm happy to be your worship associate this morning. For those who are here in person, I want to remind you to keep your mask up, covering your nose and your mouth. During the service, you may speak, you may hum, you may sing quietly from behind your mask. Unless you are staying for the virtual cafe that's immediately following the service, we ask that you do not congregate in the back of the sanctuary, but we do invite you to go outside to greet one another. It's cold, I know. You can congregate in the lawn just to the area left of the main entrance. If you are visiting for the first time, or if you do not receive our weekly online newsletter, I invite you to visit our website, firstuuwilm.org, to learn about who we are and what we do. The worship theme for March is Renewing Faith, and Reverend Larry has asked each of us to share what faith means to us. Unitarian Universalism does not require us to hold a specific set of beliefs or to follow a specific creed. Rather, we have a set of values reflected in our 7 principles which unite us. I personally follow an earth-based spirituality. For me, faith is not linked to a divine entity, but rather it's something that I see and I experience every day in nature. I am restored and renewed by the beauty of nature and the infinite possibilities of every encounter it brings. From the scent of a fresh spring rain to the song of a bird or the gentle feel of the sun on my face, I am grounded while continuing to seek a deeper meaning in our interconnectedness, knowing that there is a lesson to learn from every encounter. Now, let us join together, preparing ourselves for this morning's worship.
Good morning. I'm the Reverend Larry Piers, minister at First Unitarian Church of Wilmington. I'm so glad that this many of us remembered to put your clock forward last night and can join us either in the sanctuary or online. But if someone shows up at 11:30 this morning for this service, I'm prepared to do a second service. I'm just so happy to see people. I'll take them at any time during this day. I have a challenge for you. Now that it is so easy for us to reach out into the community, to our friends and neighbors, I want to invite you to think about who you might invite over the next 4 weeks. It's so easy. You can put a link to our online service in an email with some warm words of welcome and invitation. I see some people online just nodding and going, yeah, I could do that. Or, since gas prices are so high, you can invite them to carpool with you and join you into our warm sanctuary. So between now and including Easter Sunday, I ask you to take up that challenge. Think about one or two people that you might invite to join you here at First Unitarian Church of Wilmington. Our call to worship on this Justice Sunday comes from the writings of Howard Zinn. The essential ingredients of struggles for justice are human beings who, if only for a moment, if only beset with fears, step out of line and do something, however small. And even the smallest, most unheroic actions add to the store of kindling that may be ignited by some surprising circumstances into tumultuous change.
Today's chalice lighting is The Sacred Power of Justice, written by Jamie A. Yondell. If you have a chalice at home, I invite you to light it as we light our sanctuary's chalice. We light this flame to ignite the sacred power of justice. We light this flame so that it may be a beacon of hope in moments of uncertainty, fear, anxiety, and the unknown. We light this flame and are emboldened by its blaze, knowing our strength as a prophetic and powerful people is rooted in the diverse ways we answer the call to love.
Who we are, for each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe. Who we are, for each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe. Who we are, for each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe. Who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage, fathers of time, daughters of dust, and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy, brothers of love, lovers of life, and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth, keepers of faith, makers of peace, and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers. We are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We courage. Fathers of time, daughters of dust, and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy, brothers of love, lovers of life, and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers. We are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are one.
Please join me in affirming our mission. First Unitarian Church of Wilmington is a beloved community that nourishes minds and spirits, fights injustice, and transforms the world through loving action.
Today's story is called The Dog and the Heartless King. It is adapted from an Indian folktale in the book From Long Ago and Many Lands by Sophia Fawes. Once upon a time, there lived a king who cared for nobody but himself. He had grown rich from the high taxes he forced his people to pay, while they became poorer and poorer. He lived in a gorgeous palace, while the people who built it for him lived in run-down huts. The king's table was always heaped with delicious foods, while most of his people ate one plain meal a day, and sometimes not even that. But the heartless king did not care. If he had what he wanted, that was enough for him. One day, a hunter came to the palace gate. The hunter brought with him an enormous dog to present as a gift to the king. The king was fond of hunting, and this enormous dog fascinated him, so he accepted the gift. As soon as the king accepted the gift, the dog began to bark. Now, this dog's bark was not an ordinary bark. It was as loud as thunder and actually shook the palace walls. And the dog wouldn't stop barking. It barked and barked and barked, and no one could stop it. "What's wrong with your dog?" the king shouted to the hunter. "She's not my dog. She's your dog," the hunter shouted back, "and she's hungry." Immediately, the king ordered the servants to bring as much food as the dog could eat. But no matter how much food they brought, the dog gobbled it up and continued barking. As you can imagine, the king was not happy. "Take your dog and leave this kingdom," the king ordered. "I can't. She's not my dog," the hunter replied. "Will nothing satisfy the hunger of this enormous dog?" the king shouted. "Nothing that is easy for you to give," said the hunter. "Your Majesty, There are people in this kingdom who eat all the food and do not share it with those who do the work in the fields to make the food. As a result, there are people who are always hungry. This dog feels the hunger of every person in this kingdom who does not have enough food. As long as even one person is hungry, this dog will be hungry, and she will keep barking. The king was shocked. He thought that the people of his kingdom were simply supposed to always do exactly what he wanted. It never occurred to him that a king should think of the people and the happiness of anyone except himself. The king realized something needed to change. The king decided to open his barns, warehouses, and granaries and ensure that all of the people of the kingdom had enough food to eat. At last, the day came when the enormous dog stopped barking and lay down quietly beside the king's chair. The dog was satisfied. Everywhere in the land, the people were content. For the next few years, the enormous dog stayed by the king's side to be sure the king never reverted to his old ways. A few times, the dog barked to remind the king about justice. And each time, the king remembered the important lesson he had learned. Finally, the dog was convinced the king truly understood the meaning of justice. One morning, she simply got up and walked out of the palace and went to bark for justice in a different land. In the story, the dog barked because she wanted justice for everyone. She barked to make things fair. She was a watchdog for justice. In our Unitarian Universalist principles and purposes, we say that we believe there should be justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, and that we want a world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. One of the things that those principles mean is that Unitarian Universalists think justice is very important. We believe that when things aren't fair or just, it's important for us to be like the dog and speak up and try to make things fair. I wonder how you might live our principles by committing to justice making.
Let's join now in a time of prayer and meditation. There's so much that we are holding in our hearts on this day, in so many different arenas of our life and our world. We hold in our hearts, of course, the people of Ukraine, those refugees, those uncertain where their life is going. We hold in our heart their pain, their suffering, and their uncertainty. And we extend our heart in compassion and justice. We hold in our heart the struggles of those in this country who have not known the experience of justice or compassion in a long time. we extend our heart in compassion and peace. We hold in our heart our particular concerns for loved ones, for those who are close to us, who may be experiencing illness or loss or uncertainty in their own lives. We extend our heart in compassion and peace. And we hold in our hearts concerns for ourselves. Whatever struggles or worries, whatever aspirations yet to be realized, we hold them in our heart. And we extend compassion and peace towards ourselves. It's such a time when there is so much that we hold in our heart. It's important for us to anchor ourselves, to find a place of inner serenity, peace, and certainty. And so I offer this brief meditation by Thich Nhat Hanh and invite you to pay attention first to your breathing as it's already occurring, not needing to change it, but taking your gentle awareness to your own breathing, a place where you can find steadiness and sturdiness within. Breathing in, I know I am breathing in. Breathing out, I know I am breathing out. Breathing in, I notice that my in-breath becomes deep. Breathing out, I notice that my out-breath becomes slow. Breathing in, I calm my body and mind. Breathing out, I ease everything. Breathing in, I establish myself in this present moment. Breathing out, I realize it is a wonderful moment. Breathing in, I sense that whatever worry I may be carrying or holding in this moment and breathing out, I breathe out peace and compassion. Let's move now into a time of shared silence. Notice who has your attention this morning. Notice where your care and concern is turned towards this morning. And you may speak the names or the concern in this room or write it in the chat. May all whose names were spoken and those unspoken find peace and healing this day. For our musical meditation, I invite you to stand if you are willing and able in body or in spirit. And we have some movements to go with this particular meditation. You can join along when and as you feel ready.
Peace be with me, peace before me, peace to the right of me, peace behind me, peace to the left of me. Peace above me, peace below me, peace within. Peace be with you, peace before you, peace to the right of you, peace behind you, peace to the left of you. Peace above you, peace below you, peace within. Peace be with us, peace before us, peace to the right of us, peace behind us, peace to the left of us. Peace above us, peace below us, peace within. Peace be with us, peace before us, peace to the right of us, peace behind us, peace to the left of us, peace above us, peace below us, peace within.
Let's just savor that for just one more second. Of course, there are varying ways that we give expression to our faith and to what we hold dear. When asked why they are Unitarian Universalist, some point to the freedom of the mind and the intellectual search that our faith allows. Others point to the emotional connection that they feel and the support that they feel in a community. Some appreciate the openness to the spiritual journey and particularly to a direct, unmediated connection to the holy. Others find a connection to Unitarian Universalists because of our commitment to social justice. Of course, if we were each to make a Unitarian Universalist smoothie, each of us would have our own unique blend of each of those ingredients. While one or more may be dominant, somehow or another, we make our own mix of paths that we follow. When during the first few months at the First Unitarian Church of Wilmington among you, I had some small groups online, which was the only way we were meeting then. Occasionally someone would declare a preference. "It's all about social action for me," said one person. "I'm here for community," said another. "I want intellectual stimulation," chimed in someone else, while spiritual growth and learning was important to another. As with most Unitarian Universalist congregations, this is not surprising. We are a mixture of these emphases. Clearly, the events in our own lives or the events in our world may shift the emphasis or the expression of our Unitarian Universalism at any particular time. It's not unusual to have different paths, I'll call them, within a particular tradition. In yoga, there is this recognition that there are at least 4 paths that people can take: Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Raja Yoga, and Jnana Yoga. It's claimed that these 4 paths are like the branches of a tree or the tributaries of a river. They all have the same source and resting place. In essence, they are all the same. The paths provide different avenues of expression and connection. In Karma Yoga, action is emphasized. In Bhakti Yoga, the emotional aspect of devotion is recognized. In Raja Yoga, the mystical aspect. And in Jnana Yoga, the intellectual aspect. I like this yogic idea that each path is connected like the tributaries of a river or branches of a tree. They all have the same source, though the expression may be different. This communicates a reality that I think resonates with our own lives. We are each inclined in particular ways, right? Okay. I want to take advantage of having people actually here to hear from you. And sometimes this might shift for us at different points in our lives. I like Howard Thurman's guidance on this, a quote that I used in the closing of my service on Howard Thurman a few weeks ago and was summarized on our electronic sign on Route 202 this week, thanks to Steve Cohen. Thurman wrote, "Ask yourself what makes you come alive and go do that. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive." In some seasons of our life, we're going to come alive more through spiritual work of meditation and prayer or some other form of inward work. In other seasons, we're going to come alive more through engagement with the challenges and the problems of our community and our world. And at other times, we are ignited by reading and thoughtful discussion, and at other times through a sense of connection to beauty, to nature, or to God. Notice that the ceiling of this sanctuary is a high one. Notice that the space in this room can contain all of these paths in one place. What I've appreciated most about Unitarian Universalism is when we recognize this integral, this connected approach of all of these somehow working together. What I've not appreciated about Unitarian Universalists sometimes are those occasions when we judge someone else because they're not as engaged in social justice or spirituality or a search for the holy or the cultivating of a community as we are or would want them to be. Yes, our ceiling is high and our sanctuary has enough space for all of these paths, or as Walt Whitman may say to us in his verses, which I've adapted just a little bit, do we contradict ourselves? Very well, then we contradict ourselves. We are large. We contain multitudes. Yes, we contain a multitude among us and within us that includes intellect and emotion, the mystic and the social activist. Though it may appear that these are contradictory, in fact, we can find the deeper, underlying connections between all of these particular inclinations. Within the Christian tradition, there's often a tension expressed between contemplation and action, between prayer and solitude, or service and social action. In Buddhism, there's a creative tension as well between individual practice in a sangha or what has come to be called engaged Buddhism in the world. Thomas Merton, the Roman Catholic Trappist monk, shattered the image that a cloistered monk should be merely contemplative. For Merton, contemplation and action should never be separated. In the 1960s, he spoke out against the injustices of his time from his monastery, to the chagrin of some and the deep satisfaction of others. Finding that interplay between the contemplative practice and social action is moving beyond an either-or dissection that we sometimes do or think we must do. That kind of thinking limits us rather than expands us. Henry Nouwen, another Catholic teacher, wow, 2 Catholic teachers in one sermon. Buckle your seatbelts. So Henry Nouwen explained Merton's position, and I think his perspective actually has value for any of us, whatever our particular religious persuasion, since it speaks to our aims in our own work for social justice. Nouwen writes, all of Merton's writings on social action make the same point. As long as you act to prove yourself, to justify yourself, or to get rid of your guilt feelings, you will quickly lose heart and do more harm than good. Merton even goes so far as to say that work for others that does not lead to deeper purity of heart or intention is little more than the imposition of our own compulsions on our surroundings. Nouwen continues, why then should we act in civil rights movement? And the response, so the whites will be converted by the blacks. Why then should we act in the peace movement? So we can discover the source of violence in our own hearts. Why act to alleviate hunger? So that we can unmask our own greed. Thus, all actions for others can bring us to a growing solidarity with our fellow human beings and so establish the basis for all reconciliation. this kind of interplay that Nouwen talks about between the personal work and social justice, I think can arise in a contemplation and action approach to social justice. If each of us are true to the path that makes us come alive, then let it be so. No one needs to throw nails in front of the tires because they think we should take their road instead. Teacher and activist Gail Straub offers this both-and perspective as well when it comes to personal growth and social action. She asserts that caring for self and caring for our world are inseparable. She uses the metaphor of the in-breath and the out-breath. In breathing, we can't say, I will only inhale or I will only exhale. They're connected to one another. Straub asserts in her book, The Rhythm of Compassion, Caring for Self, Connecting to Society. She illustrates it in this way. Without the in-breath of self-care and reflections, we can't sustain our involvement with the suffering of the world, nor do we have the clarity of heart and mind required for the complex challenges that we face. On the other hand, without the out-breath of compassion, engagement with society, our inner work implodes upon itself, leading to the dead end of narcissism and spiritual emptiness. To sustain life on all levels, we need to breathe in, attend to self, and we need to breathe out, attend to the needs in our society. We know that these dividing lines that we tend to create are illusory. We know that both personal spiritual growth and social transformation are connected, or that's my hope, that we would have that kind of experience again and again. But without a personal anchor, we can easily despair in our work around social justice. We can burn out or give up in the face of the social challenges and the earth challenges that we face. We can begin to feel overwhelmed that we give up. So we need that personal anchor to ground us. Without finding ways to engage in responses to the suffering of our world, we know that we risk becoming self-absorbed. We need both heart and action to sustain our efforts. It's undeniable that when we act to do something about the injustice in the world, we have to be tapping into some degree of compassion and care within ourselves. We find both rational and emotional reasons that propel us forward into deeper engagement with the social issues of our time. So at its root, social justice becomes a response to what we care about. It becomes a response to what evokes compassion in us, what moves us. And for some, like Gandhi, it was a soul force that provided that sort of anchor of understanding for him that allowed him to engage directly in actions of protest, knowing that he had that anchor to hold him when there was no immediate result or the challenges would not abate right away. Now, I have found that my perspective on our work for justice has a much broader lens than I used to have. My own thinking about social justice has shifted dramatically as I've come to understand and continue to study all the links between social justice, health, medicine, food, collective trauma, and the need for ongoing systemic change. That's a lot to hold in one head, I know, but this really became more apparent to us, I think, and certainly to me, during the COVID pandemic. This pandemic has exposed to us what was already there. Those most vulnerable to getting the virus, to getting sick, to losing jobs or housing or any sense of security were already those who were historically most vulnerable in our society. Those marginalized because of their race or ethnicity, those who already lived on the edge because they were poor or did not have health care or could not work at home, they carried more of the brunt of this pandemic in a disproportionate number. While research pointed out this connection between the disparities in health and other institutional and institutional racism and structural oppression, that diagnosis, however, has not necessarily led to a treatment that includes dealing with those structural issues. We see the connection. Research has shown it, but we have not necessarily followed through with a kind of treatment or understanding that includes those structural issues as well. And that's where social justice and the work for social justice comes in. So I read a wonderful book. I'm not going to give a total synopsis of it here, but it's a very powerful book written by Dr. Rupa Marya and Raj Patel. It's entitled Inflamed: Deep Medicine and the Anatomy of Injustice. Now, wouldn't that cause you to pull it off the shelf? Yes or no? Wouldn't you gravitate right towards that? Well, the authors point out that our bodies, societies, and planet are inflamed. And at the same time, there's been a surge of inflammatory illnesses and diseases. There have been mass uprisings around the world in response to systemic racism and violence, and there are a rising number of climate refugees. They advocate for what they call a deep medicine, in which medicine and healing are not just a personal matter. Because in many cases, the illnesses that people are experiencing, including us, we are experiencing as the results of injustices that oftentimes have occurred over centuries, that have separated us from the web of life, have weakened our immune responses, disconnected us from our own bodies, have oppressed indigenous ways of knowing and being with the earth. They argue that indeed our planet is inflamed. Take a moment and think about the fires that have existed in this country, in the Pacific Northwest, California, Siberia, Europe. Think about how chemistry has burned life from the soil and has done the same in the oceans. We might think about the climate emergency as just about weather, but actually it's about our responses to the weather as well. Think about Texas, when there was that ice storm. It was the greed of a few to have a certain kind of power system that unfortunately could not sustain them through that storm, and the most vulnerable lost power, lost homes, some lost lives. So as I'm trying to express here that my perspective on social justice has widened a bit to allow us to see how generations have been impacted over time, how the structures that we have need as much attention in terms of health and well-being as individuals. That as trauma has passed from one generation to the next, how all of us can be more vulnerable due to what has happened to our food, to our water, to our air, our levels of debt and stress. All of these contribute to what the authors outline as a chronic immune response, which can lead to an increase in inflammatory diseases. Do you hear the connection between what's happening to the earth, what's happening socially in terms of the enraged feelings that people feel about injustice, and our own bodies as well? There are many ways to illustrate this that they provide in the book. I don't have time to go into those right now. But the important thing to think about is that there are things that we can do. There are ways that by broadening our lens of what social justice includes, we can find more ways to respond. The Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, which Beverly will speak about today, is one of those organizations that I know about that takes this kind of comprehensive approach to social justice, to justice making. The UUSC recognizes the connection between personal health and well-being and the environmental emergency that we're in the communities that they work with. The UUSC knows the importance of empowering others to act on their behalf by partnering with organizations that are serving refugees from Ukraine and other places of the world, and particularly those who are migrating because of climate emergency. The UUSC is one of those organizations that I support because it works with indigenous people to restore power and to repair some of the deep wounds of disempowerment that underlie injustice. So we are in dark times, yet may we hear the songs of justice within us and among us and on the horizon before us. We are in times where we can sometimes feel despair, yet we can continue to dance with a joy and a justice that wants to emerge. Reverend Otis Moss III reminds us, and I quote, "If you dance long enough, weeping may endure for a night, but joy will come in the morning. Do not let the darkness find its way in you, but dance in the dark." The Hebrew prophet Amos declared, "Let justice roll down like waters, and righteousness like a mighty stream." Justice, if justice is to flow down like waters, we need some concrete images of what justice looks like. Otherwise, it becomes so abstract that we have no inclination in what we're wanting to work towards. So there are many images that can guide us. And for us this day, we're going to sing and work towards this vision of justice. In one of our songs, there is the verse, "For everyone born, a place at the table. For everyone born, clean water and bread, a shelter, a space, a safe place for growing. For everyone born, a star overhead." So let's sing about justice as well as work for justice. As we join together in this song, We'll Build a Land. Now, please feel free, if you're here, to take a percussion instrument. They're in the back. In the basket at home, you can grab a pot or a pan or whatever and join in creating a little noise for justice during the chorus part of it. During the chorus, and I'll I'll illustrate when you can join in. So let's stand as you're willing or able and sing together, We'll Build the Land.
We'll build a land where the bind up the broken. We'll build a land where the captives go free, where the oil of gladness dissolves all mourning. Oh, we'll build a promised land that can be. Come, build a land where sisters and brothers anointed by God may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. We'll build a land where we bring the good tidings to all the afflicted and all those who mourn, and we'll give them gardens instead of ashes. Oh, we'll build a land where peace is born. Come, build a land where sisters and brothers anointed by God may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. We'll be a land building up ancient cities, raising up devastations from old, restoring ruins of generations. Oh, we'll build a land of people so bold. Come, build a land where sisters and brothers anointed by God may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. Come, build a land where the mantles of praises resound from spirits once faint and once weak, where like oaks of righteousness stand her people. Oh, come, build the land, my people we seek. Come, build a land where sisters and brothers anointed by God may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream.
Today is UUSC Justice Sunday, the day we learn something about our Unitarian Universalist Service Committee and contribute via the Sunday offering for the Service Committee's worldwide human rights work. We're reminded on this Justice Sunday that the work of the Service Committee began when Unitarian Minister Waitstill Sharp and his wife Martha left their church and their small children in Wellesley, Massachusetts in 1939 to go to Prague, Czechoslovakia to help rescue intellectuals, artists, Jews, and others targeted by the Nazis. Even though the Sharps had to flee Prague to avoid arrest, the Service Committee continued throughout the war from southern France to rescue those targeted by the Nazis. The Flaming Chalice, which we light each Sunday, was designed by Austrian refugee Hans Deutsch for the Service Committee during the war to become the underground symbol in occupied Europe for assistance to those targeted by the Nazis. Ever since, the Service Committee has been responding around the world to difficult human rights issues, especially to the marginalized, those left out or ignored by other human rights organizations or rescue organizations. We were in Central and South America during the turmoil of the 70s and 80s, and because of our work, were invited back for the signing of the peace accords in El Salvador. We were in Ethiopia before the world knew there was a famine. UUSC was in Eritrea before the world paid attention to the attacks from Ethiopia. And after the ceasefire, the Service Committee was invited to celebrate Eritrea's new constitution. We were partnering in Rwanda before the world paid attention to the genocide. We were in Darfur long before the celebrities began paying attention. Our partners were active in nonviolent education efforts in Egypt as the Arab Spring began. We were in Myanmar, formerly known as Burma, before the world became aware of the genocide against the Rohingya and their flight to Bangladesh. The Service Committee is right now in Nicaragua, Honduras, Guatemala, working with local partners to address the human rights issues that are causing migrants to take the long, dangerous journey to the U.S. We are in Mexico with partners which are helping the migrants on their journey, including Partner Asylum Access Mexico, which helps migrants obtain documents to stay and work in Mexico. And we are along the U.S. southern border with partners which are providing legal aid to asylum seekers, and partners which are helping with food, clothing, housing, and trauma support. UUSC's climate portfolio is supporting partners from Alaska and Louisiana in the US to multiple Pacific Island communities which have had to relocate because of climate change, including the Solomon Islands, Fiji, Tuvalu, Marshall Islands, and Kiribati. As many of you know, in 2017, Doyle and I visited with partners in Myanmar, working at great personal danger with the Rohingya. UUSC is one of the few international organizations which has continued to be able to get aid into Myanmar since the military coup. And UUSC is responding to the devastation in Ukraine. It is supporting the Hungarian Helsinki Committee, a partner in Hungary, which is helping Ukrainian refugees by providing free legal assistance, counseling, and representation so that Ukrainian asylum seekers receive temporary protection immediately. Doyle and I met with this partner in 2018 when we visited partners in Hungary, Croatia, and Serbia who were providing aid to refugees from the violence in Syria and other Middle East countries. We saw firsthand the power of the work of these partners. They've now pivoted to help Ukrainian refugees. We can't be in Ukraine or in Hungary, Myanmar, Nicaragua, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Mexico, but the Service Committee is there for us through the local partners who are making a difference. The Service Committee began over 80 years ago in response to Hitler's evil devastation. It is responding today to Putin's evil devastation. We can support that work this Justice Sunday. You're all familiar with the 4 ways of giving. You can give today by selecting the Sunday morning collection. That option on the website at firstuuwilm.org or on the app. Select the Sunday morning collection. You can send a check made out to UUSC to the church address to be forwarded, or you can go to the Service Committee's website at uusc.org. uusc.org. Thank you for your support of our human rights organization based upon our UU principles. Please join me now in dedicating our offering. To the work of this congregation, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action, we dedicate our lives and these our offerings. But we're not quite finished with our stewardship. As you know, we're in the midst of our annual stewardship campaign, otherwise known as our pledge drive. Board member Cinda Crane has a message for us.
Hello, I'm Cinda Crane, a member of your Board of Trustees. I've been a member of First U for over 30 years and have been fortunate to benefit from the services and programs and pastoral care. As you're probably well aware by now, we're in the midst of our pledge campaign. A pledge is a plan. What funds do we each plan to contribute to First U for the coming year? Timing is important. We pledge in March so that in April, the executive team, which is Reverend Larry, Marina, our business manager, along with Linda Sanders and Dale Stratton, can prepare a proposed budget for the coming year. Then the board reviews and endorses that budget, and the congregation votes on that budget at our May meeting. So decisions need to be made soon. We want to have the most robust programming that we can, but also stay within our budget. What programs can we support for the coming year? What's the best use of our financial resources? So now is the time. Now's the time to let our church leaders know what financial resources they will have available to them for making that budget. Thank you for your support of our beloved community.
As Cinda said, now is the time. If you have not already pledged, now is the time to submit your pledge so the executive team and the board of directors can finalize a budget to present to the congregation at our annual meeting. What the church will be able to do next year depends upon what members do now. To date, we have received 98 pledges and reached 64% of our goal of $490,000. If you have pledged, thank you. If you have not, you can find instructions for making your pledge online in our Friday e-newsletter, as well as via the link posted in our YouTube chat. For those here in the sanctuary, we have paper forms available at the back of the sanctuary. Thank you for your support of First U.
Celebrate.
give a hand to our choir. And Kathy, I understand the choir's meeting on Thursday nights here at the church. So great. If you've been holding off, now's your time to jump in. So following this service, immediately after the service, for those of you who want, there is a virtual coffee hour, virtual cafe, no coffee included, that'll be in this room. We'll meet with those who are joining us online, so that's an optional opportunity. So our closing words are from Dorothy Sewell. She's a Christian German liberation and feminist theologian, and she writes, "God has no other hands than ours. If the sick are to be healed, it is our hands that will heal them. If the lonely and the frightened are to be comforted, it is our embrace, not God's, that will comfort them."
We extinguish our chalice with words from Cheryl Block. If you've lit a chalice at home, please extinguish yours with us. As we go forward into this frightening, exhilarating, confusing, miraculous world, may we offer our comfort to the afflicted, our love to those who are lonely, and our wish for all to be safe.